Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber with Everyone Loves Guitar. I've got a real badass session player, touring musician out of Nashville as our guest today. Nick DiMaria is with us. This is a very busy guy. He's opened up for Florida Georgia Line, Toby Keith, Ronnie Dunn, Willie Nelson, Clint Black, Frankie Ballard, Thompson Square, and loads more. He's got a ton of demo and master and performing credits. Right now he's doing work on tour, and he's doing recordings with Devin Dawson on Warner Brothers. He's also recorded with Jacob Durrett, Jay Joyce, John Paul White from the Civil Wars, Luke Wooten, Fiona Cully. He's done demos for every major publisher in the business and loads of independents, including Starstruck Entertainment, Seagale, and Station West, which is a big one. He also did the debut EP on Red Bow Records, which is a subsidiary of Broken Bow Records, for Brooke Eden. And what's the song? Act Like You Don't, Nick?
Act Like You Don't. Yeah,
that's the current hit that's going up the charts. Again, he's right now working with Devin Dawson on Warner Brothers in Atlantic with Jay Joyce, who's a very big-time producer up in Nashville. And he has a bunch of cool guitars he plays that we'll talk about that too. So, Nick, I really appreciate you taking the time to come with us on the show today. Thank you.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Craig. I'm excited to dive on in.
Well, cool. So what are you working on now that you're most excited about? You got a lot of cool stuff going on.
Yeah, you hit a lot of the highlights, man. But yeah, the most current stuff happening right now is really this stuff happening with Devin. We recorded the album with Jay kind of last, I'm trying to think back now, it was probably kind of July, and then we kind of finished up a couple of other things in September, and they started putting out singles on him earlier this year, and we've got 3 songs up on Spotify right now, and the first of which got released to radio a few weeks ago, so now that one's climbing up the charts, and we've been on the road.
What song is that?
It's called All On Me.
Okay, yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, so we've been on the road promoting that for probably about 4 or 5 months now, doing what's called a radio tour, where we basically go to, I feel like we've been to every state in the friggin' United States, and we just visit radio stations, and we play the music for them live. It's me, Devin, and we have another guitar player named Austin Taylor Smith. And the 3 of us go around to radio stations, just play them the music, and we get to chat with them a little bit and kind of build a little bit of a rapport around the country with country radio and get them on board with the music. So it's been a very, very busy time. I was kind of telling you a little bit before this, just been, for a while we were on the road for 5 days at a time, maybe 1 or 2 days back in Nashville, 5 days, 6 days, 1 day, 2 days back in Nashville. So very, very busy with that stuff, just flying around everywhere. And then we were on tour with Mary Morris earlier this year on her Hero Tour, which was very fun. We did a performance on Late Night with Seth Myers as well. What else? I'm sure there's other stuff in there somewhere. That's kind of the high points. As I kind of told you earlier too, I started getting more into production and recording when I'm not on the road as well. But I've been working a lot with a company called Riser House Entertainment. My friend Kristen, who is awesome, she's their creative director. They've been helping me out a lot. So yeah, man. That's kind of the cliff notes, I guess, of the past year of my life, pretty much.
Very cool, man. No, you're on fire. So let me ask you this: so you go to which of these things? So you're on Late Night with Seth Myers. You're touring around the country. You're up on stage. What thing was there? One of these events that, like, you actually had like you're doing this thing and you're like, holy shit, pinch me. I mean, like, 2 years ago I was, or 5 years ago I was in a dorm room playing my guitar, and now I'm XYZ. I mean, does it seem surreal at times, or has any one event like happened that you said, wow, this is really, this is real now. This is really happening.
For sure. I mean, it's completely surreal, man. I mean, it's even more surreal because of the fact of, I met Devin at Belmont. We both went to school at Belmont University in Nashville. And so, as did most of our band, like all of the band went to Belmont, but me, our drummer Kip Allen, and our bass player Sam Rodberg were all at Belmont at the same time with Devin, and we all started jamming together. And so now we're all doing, we're all in this together as a group. And I never would have thought that, this is the way, we would have, quote unquote, we still have a lot of work to do, but quote unquote made it.
Sure.
In Nashville. But I guess to answer your question, definitely the first moment where I was like, holy shit, this is crazy, was definitely recording with Jay Joyce. Because when you work in the music industry in Nashville, you kind of get used to kind of not getting too excited about things until they actually happen. So that was one of those things for me where, like, Devin signed a publishing deal with Warner Brothers and with a company called Neon Cross, which is Jay's publishing company. And so we recorded an EP for him at Jay's studio, but Jay didn't produce it. It was kind of just like our band kind of doing it ourselves. But that was one of our things. It was like, man, like, it would be amazing to record with Jay and like do an actual album with him. And so once Devin signed his record deal with Warner Brothers, that started kind of getting tossed around in the conversation. I was like, oh man, like, that'd still be cool, like, I don't know if it's gonna happen. And then, like, Devin and I were talking, we were on the way to a gig, and he was telling me, yeah, no, I think Jay, was really thinking about, having a live band to come in to do the record. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. But that's still in the back of my mind, like, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not gonna get too carried away with it until I'm freaking sitting in the freaking recording chair with a mic in front of my amp cab with all my gear at the studio. And, it was one of those things, everything just kind of kept falling into place. And finally, we were sitting in the studio with Jay Joyce, and we do the album. So that was definitely, especially like the first day walking into his studio, was definitely a little bit nerve-wracking. But, that was like the dream. I listened to stuff that he's produced in high school, and it was a lot of his music that he produced that got me into country music. And of course, he's gotten a huge rap sheet of rock records as well. And he's started working with a guy named Mickey Echo, who's a pop artist. I mean, he's got a hell of a rap sheet. He's a super talented guy. So that was kind of the first kind of holy shit moment for me, I guess, was getting to record with Jay.
So let me ask you this: what, as a musician in the studio and working with a guy like Jay, what do you notice, like, being in the studio with a producer of his caliber? How does that change things versus being in the studio with no producer or just any average Joe producer? Like, how does his game elevate what's going on specifically?
Oh, absolutely. That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to, in a lot of ways, it's kind of tough to quantify, but definitely, kind of starting out in Nashville, you kind of start recording with your friends and doing your little projects, and and there's obviously some really talented people, up and coming, and Jacob is a perfect example of that. Like, we did a lot of work together, and he's a talented producer and a track guy. But one of the things that was definitely different about working with Jay, and like maybe come to a surprise, is just working in the studio with a live band, like as together as a unit. Like, that's not as common nowadays to do. So most people do kind of like you go into a studio, it's kind of a smaller room, and you kind of build a track kind of one piece at a time. And the vibe of having everything going down at the same time is definitely a different feeling, in and of itself. But as far as like Jay's workflow specifically, I think a good producer just knows how to capture a great performance, at the end of the day. Like, I think that's kind of one of my big takeaways from him is he just knows how to create that environment, with his, in his studio, with the arrangement of the song, and just the overall like vibe with the band that creates a good performance that everyone can be really proud of. And like, we would spend, a whole day on one song and, get the perfect live take, and then go back over it and punch things here and there if we didn't, love one thing. But even if there was like a little mistake in one of the things, sometimes he would say, "Oh no, that's like, I love this take, I love the vibe. Like, let's just stick with it." And but I think that's just it, dude. Like, there's not a whole lot of substitute for just a good performance, and like a good performance with the perfect tone, or with the perfect inflection, or nuance, on the guitar, that maybe you did it on purpose or maybe you didn't, but it doesn't really matter.
Sure.
And then, because one of the big moments for me when we recorded was we did a song called Symptoms, which is going to be on the record. I think it's coming out in October. And I had done the demo for the song with another producer in town here, and it's got this kind of like auto wah effect on like my main part on the song. And so
auto wah, like
auto wah, or like envelope filter,
okay.
Or I don't know, it has a few different names, but it's basically, the effect is it's a equalizer filter that filters all of the high end off of the guitar, and then as you pluck harder, as you play hard on the guitar, the filter opens. So it's it's how a wah works. So okay. It kind of makes like a wah 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 effect. If you know the song "I Don't Trust Myself, Loving You" by John Mayer, it's an wah like that.
Okay.
Wah, wah. So that's what I normally did, like kind of throughout the song, and then that's what I did, on the main rhythm for the song when we recorded it with Jay. Then it came time to do the solo, and I played the rhythm part down twice, and we came to do the solo, and Jay said, "Okay, well, what do you normally do here?" And I was like, well, I have the same effect on. I just kind of normally just hit it a little harder so the filter opens up a little bit more. And he was like, "Well, why don't you just turn that off for a second and just see what happens, And I was like, shoot, okay. And then I normally played my telly for that part, but I was just like, I'm gonna pick up the Strat and just try something. So I had my whammy bar on the Strat, and I played one take of the solo, and he was like, "Yeah, I mean that was pretty good. Like, do you want to use that?" And I was like, "I mean, yeah. I honestly don't think it's gonna get any better than that." Like, it was just one of those things. Like, he just said, like, "You know what? Just try something, and just do it. And it worked. It was,
Cool.
Not a lot of people kind of think about using pressure like that, just to say, like, you know what, throw away what you thought, throw away what you normally do in this song and just do something completely different.
Which is intimidating, I guess, to a certain extent, isn't it?
Oh, it's definitely intimidating. And,
Sure.
it's, to a certain extent it is. It's kind of the purest form of just like trusting, yourself, or just trusting the gear, and just having the ability to say, fuck it, I'm just gonna try something different. And we tried it a few times. Sometimes it didn't work, but it did work a few times, and in those few times that it does work, you're just like, wow, like that was so satisfying, and like it feels so pure. And it's like in those moments, if you're really just kind of like not thinking about it, sometimes those can be the things that really shine through in recording, and those can be your most proud moments. So it's just such a beautiful like allegory, I guess, even for life. Just kind of having that experience. So yeah, man. I mean, it was an incredible experience, but those little things like that, I think, definitely separate, a real like seasoned producer like Jay, as opposed to maybe a less experienced producer, for sure.
So people, guys listening, just so you know, Jay's worked with the Wallflowers. He's produced CDs for the Wallflowers, Emmylou Harris, Cage the Elephant, and Zach Brown Band, just to name a few. And he's actually played guitar for Crowded House, Wallflowers, John Hyatt. Here's an interesting one, Iggy Pop.
Oh, yeah.
That's an eclectic mix. Hey, I'm going to pause 1 second because I have a 14-year-old dog, and it's thundering here in Tampa, and she's going to tear my door down if I don't let her in. Hang on. Holy smokes. Come on, sweetie. Good girl. Come here, sweetie. Sorry, man. That's always it always either like usually when I'm doing interviews, my landscape guy shows up, or it starts pouring, and my dog, and my wife's not around, and the dog starts freaking out. Come here, sweetie.
Oh, dude, you're good, man. Dogs have a sixth sense about those kind of things.
Oh. So let me ask you a question. You grew up in the Bay Area, out in San Francisco. Was playing guitar like always on your radar screen? Like, when did you know, and how did that come about that, hey, I'd like to be a professional musician, or I'd like to give this a shot?
When I was a kid growing up, I was always kind of like looking for that thing to do, I guess, or like, just looking for like a hobby, or just looking for something to be passionate about, I guess. So, I went through all kinds of phases when I was like a really young kid. Like, I had a friend that did like these, they were called Warhammer, fucking like plastic figurines, and there was like a whole board game associated with it, and you'd like have to paint the figure and everything. So I was like, I'll try anything, So like, I have one thing that I did, and so I don't know, but music was kind of always in the background for me, and like even through all that stuff, because my dad was kind of a recreational musician, and he had one of his dreams was to get a Les Paul and a Marshall amp, and he finally, like in 1999, the company that he worked for at the time went public, and so he said, I'm going to go out. This is it. I'm going to go out and do it. So, I was 6 at the time, so that was always kind of around when I was a kid. And I also had a friend who was a really great drummer as I think, in kindergarten or first grade. So I was always kind of like jamming on his drum kit. So one day it kind of just dawned on me, like, man, like I've been doing all this other stuff, but the one thing I've kind of stuck around with was with music. So I actually really wanted to be a drummer. So I begged my parents to get me a drum set, and they're like most normal parents. They said no, hell no, we're not giving you a freaking drum set. We don't want to have to listen to that. So again, it was kind of just out of stupidity on my part, just like, what, this is around, this is right here, and I've always been tinkering with it. Maybe I should just take it more seriously. And it was probably about, maybe around like 10 or 11 years old when I really kind of started to take it seriously. And it kind of just took off from there, man. I mean, I did, the talent show when I was in middle school, and then did the jazz band in high school, and it just kind of kept snowballing. And then kind of at some point I kind of connected the dots, and I said, like, hey, I might want to just, try doing this thing. And then of course, I read about Nashville and the fact that there was a music industry here, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even really think about that or know that really even existed. So started doing some research on that, and then the rest is history, I guess. Do you still have your and this was all taking place on your dad's Les Paul? Yes. What kind of Les Paul was it? It was from 1999. It was a Gibson Les Paul Classic in sunburst. It actually looks a lot like the guitar you had hanging right behind you. I was just going to say that, man. Yeah, that's a classic. That's exactly what that is. Is that a classic? So, oh my God. Yeah. It's a great. So yeah. It has like four the hot pickups. I don't know if they did that in '99. I think they did, because they always had the hotter pickups on the Classic. It's like a 490 and a 498T or something like that. Yeah, something like that. Well, it's like, do you have the gloss finish on yours too? It is glossy. Yes, it's like a T-burst glossy, and I think that's like a 2005 or something like that. So it's probably not far off from that guitar your dad has. That's really funny, and it's got a real thin neck. I mean, I don't have really big hands, so I love playing it. Mm-hmm. Was your dad's that have a thin neck as well, or was it like an old style, thick, chunky necks? I mean, I didn't, obviously. I mean, he still has it, but I couldn't tell you necessarily specifically. But it's good though, because I remember after a while, Gibson decided to do, like, I don't even know, it wasn't even like a matte finish necessarily. It was like they kind of like stained it sunburst. And it was the grossest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life. But that's what they eventually did to the Classic. I was just like, why did they freaking do this? And so I always kind of cherished those, Les Paul Classics before they ruined them with whatever that stain was. But and I guess, and I realized, of course, later too, that that's like the Slash guitar too, the Tobacco Summers with the no pickup covers. Yeah. So it's a great guitar, man. I love that thing, even to this day. I think it's a great guitar. Yeah, it is. I won't sell this one. I mean, I have another one that I have actually up for sale. It's a standard, and it's a nice sounding guitar, but I don't play it as much as I like this Classic. That's a keeper, man. So I mean, is yours ridiculously heavy? No, mine is chambered. It's chambered. Yeah. So it's not heavy at all. That might have been one of the modifications that they made, because that was the one thing about that guitar is, I mean, even now, it is. That's got to be like an 11, 12 pound guitar. It's a brick. Yeah, but I always wondered, like, when I grew up in the 70s, let's say, and I was really into music. The typical aesthetic of a band is, a guy that's like Joe Perry size. He's really thin, really shredded. And I never knew how these guys were. And everyone was like that. They'd be walking around with these massive, heavy Les Pauls. And I was like, wow, that is really just in and of itself pretty talented. Oh, dude, they're just doing cocaine and not eating, man. I guess that's the secret formula. For the physique, at least. I don't know about the strength for carrying around a freaking Les Paul with all that, but
That'll be one of the bullets for the teaser copy for this show. How doing cocaine and not eating helps you in your guitar.
Yeah. That's how you become a rock star, right? You do cocaine and you don't eat ever.
There you go.
That's the lesson, kids. So
that's funny that you have that your dad has that guitar.
Yeah.
Who are the biggest? So how did you get into country? Because I know it wasn't hanging out in the Bay Area, listening to what they're playing over there.
No, it was not. I had a guitar teacher at the time who was obsessed with Brad Paisley, and he would say, every single lesson I ever went with him, he said, "Dude, you've got to listen to Brad Paisley. He's like the best guitar player in the world right now. He's so incredible." And of course, I was like, yeah, like, that's cool, like country music, whatever. And one day I was just watching TV, and I went into the kitchen to grab a sandwich or something, and I heard a song come on a commercial on the TV from the other room, and I was like, "Hey, that guitar sounds pretty good. I wonder what that is." And I walk in the room, and it's Brad Paisley on a freaking Hershey's commercial.
So the universe was telling you, hitting home that message.
Yes. So
awesome.
Hershey's did well on their market. I guess so did Brad Paisley on that commercial. So that was kind of it. And so I just kind of started with Brad Paisley, and I just got super into his music. And then I really got into like Dierks Bentley and like Sarah Evans, and I'm trying to think of what else. Those were kind of the ones. And Eric Church too, like, with Jay. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of it, though. And that's funny, actually, because that's also how I found out about Belmont. It was through the fact that Brad Paisley went to Belmont.
Ah, yes.
So, as I did digging on him, and then I was like, "Oh, this is Nashville, Belmont University. Oh, this is so cool. It's just worth checking it out." So
very cool. Brad
Paisley is the reason why I'm in Nashville, and the reason for pretty much everything in my life. So
well, sometimes
thanks, Brad.
When things are meant to be, they just happen like that, man. That's just the way they unfold, I think. Let's talk about some of your guitars. So what's a Highway 1? You have a Fender Highway 1 Telecaster. What is a Highway 1? What's different about that model?
Yes. The Highway 1s are kind of funky. I don't feel like they made them for very long. They're American made, but I don't really know what kind of got into Fender's head to make this thing, because it's a matte finish guitar, and the necks on them are really, really amazing. They're really skinny, and the frets are enormous. And I think like the pickups and stuff were kind of average, but they were really cheap. They were, I think when they were new, they were like $700 or $800, brand new. And so they were the cheapest American-made Fender guitar you could buy. And everyone that I've talked to about them has said the same thing, though. There's just something really cool about them, like really magical, and they play really well. And the bodies on them, I guess, just because of the matte finish, just feel really resonant. And so I've kind of Frankenstein mine over the years. I took out the pickups, and I think I've got a Texas Special neck pickup, and then I have a DiMarzio, believe it or not. Something in the bridge. I can't remember what it is. But that's a cool pickup, man. It's a rockin' little bridge pickup. And then
is that an active pickup?
No, okay. It's still a passive pickup. But I think it's called a True Velvet. DiMarzio True Velvet pickup. Which I don't even know if they make those anymore either. But they have a really, really cool kind of full sound, and they're still pretty twangy, so yeah, good job. And then I did the 4-way switch also for the pickup. So you got the bridge, and then both pickups in series, both pickups in parallel, and the neck.
Very cool. And so here's something really funny. If you look up Fender Highway 1, right? And this was just the perfect point to show you that opinions are like assholes. and you need to actually go play a guitar. So here you are, a professional touring musician. Your career's about to go on fire, and you're doing really well. So I look on some forum. Man, am I glad Fender is scrapping. This was in 2010. The Highway 1 Strat. What a low-end pile of junk. I am a gigging musician and play hundreds of shows a year. The fretwork was horrible. I cut my fingers and had to file them down. I don't know if you're talking about his fingers or the frets. Then in the middle of a gig, I mean, it's just so funny because this is the danger. I mean, look, having information and access to information is great. But here you said, it's a magical, that was your words, it's a magical instrument. And it obviously, I mean, you didn't just make it up because you feel like it's a magical instrument. You've played really well with this. Hold on. Come here, sweetie. My dog is freaking out. I hate when
No, you're good.
She needs a Xanax or something. And here you are tearing up, recorded, recordings with major producers, and this guy online is so it's this is so individual, man. That's why
and I think that's what I always say when people ask me about gear. I'm like, I have what I like, and maybe that guy like friggin' just hates the feeling of the Highway 1 Telecaster. Maybe the one that he got was shitty, like I don't know, but
yeah, which is a very good possibility with any guitar in any brand, any make. Are some lemons,
Oh yeah, and I mean, I've kind of reached the point now where like I'm so particular about like what I like, and I'm more about the feel of the guitar because you can always like switch out a pickup, like that's easy enough to do to kind of modify the sound of it a little bit, but the bass component of the sound of the guitar and just the playability of the guitar is just like, how does it friggin' feel when you hold it in your hands, when you strum a chord, when you play some notes, like that's when you really start to, at least, if you're really like, passionate about guitar and like, that's what you want, you're gonna want to feel that, that good feeling of playing a good guitar that like fits for you. So, and everybody likes something different, but I mean, I've played, vintage $40,000, $50,000 guitars that I thought were the shittiest instruments in the world. And, not everybody wants to hear that, but it's just like, it's just a fact. Like just because something has a $40,000 price tag on it doesn't mean that it's something that you want to buy. Like realistically, like you can't get wrapped up in like, oh, this is the best guitar because it costs this much or it has this, this body or this bridge. It's like, what if you just played it and thought it was awesome, but then just because it has one thing, that's thunder? Holy crap.
Totally, man. It's very subject. And you know what? Was that a vintage guitar, 40 or 50 grand, or is that like a modern guitar? Because that.
Oh, like a vintage.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, that's not a guitar designed to play anywhere. I mean, you're not going to take that out of your, your living room, or I mean, that'd be crazy. That's something to hang on a wall or something like that.
Yeah. So I mean, if that's what you're looking for, if you're a rich dude looking for a wall hanging, I guess maybe that's cool, But I've also played some vintage instruments where, like maybe they are like up in the the high tens of thousands of dollars, and they do have like a certain mojo, and you think like, wow, like I don't think there's any other instrument that plays like this. Like this is definitely something that is unique and something that I can't find in a normal, a newer guitar or in a cheaper guitar. And those are the ones to hang on to. But like there's so much passion and kind of gusto in the gear community. And people get attached to, an idea of X and Y, but I'm all about just how does it feel to you, or like how does it feel to the player and how does it sound? Because some things sound great when someone else plays them, but they don't sound good when I play them, or vice versa, so.
I think people also make a mistake if they see a price tag and like let's say it's a $10,000 guitar versus a $10,000 Strat versus a $1,000 Strat, and I think people, well, is it played 10 times better? That's not how you evaluate things. You can't say, does a $50,000 car drive 5 times better than a 10? Or there's not $10,000 cars, but does a $50,000 car drive twice? Is it twice the car of a $25,000 car? I don't think you could evaluate certain things with relative comparisons. I think certain things there's a market price, and it is what it is. If you like it, buy it. If you don't. But I don't think is a $20 cigar twice as good or 4 times as good as a $5 cigar? I don't know. It's kind of
Oh yeah.
Hang on, man. I'm sorry. This dog is totally ripping up my studio. Hang on. Oh my God, Stella, you're so mental. Holy smokes. Good girl. Sorry, man. She's just like freaking out here. Usually my wife's around, so she like keeps her, but she's just going nuts. Oh shit! Hang on. Stella, stop! Holy smokes! Stella. Sorry, man. She's 14, and she's kind of losing it a little bit, and she gets so super anxious, and like all her hair's falling out. Anyway, sorry. Okay, let's talk about your 335, because I know you love that instrument. Share, if you will, what you feel the core differences are, both in sonically and in playability, between a hollow body 335 and a solid body guitar like a Strat or a Tele or a Gibson Les Paul or.
Oh yeah, I mean it's definitely night and day, and I mean of course the 335 is a semi hollow guitar, which means that it has basically just a board of wood down the middle of it. Which actually, again, little known fact, I don't know if you know this already, but that was the initial design of the solid body guitar that Les Paul created. Was a semi-hollow guitar with a board of wood down the center. But it is, I'd say, the biggest difference between kind of a semi-hollow and a solid body is definitely the kind of the resonance and kind of the ring. It's kind of hard to describe, again, like I'm such an ethereal kind of, I guess, I don't know, it's the artist in me coming out. But you can kind of tell, it's like when you feel the guitar vibrate, it's like if you're playing with the amp in the room, with a hollow body guitar, you can feel the resonance from the amp, resonating through the strings and through the body of the guitar, and that's why hollow body guitars feed back so much more easily than a solid body guitar does, and that translates even in a low volume. So, it definitely just has kind of like a woody, almost, I think, quality to it. If you can just kind of, the strings just sound like, not dead necessarily, but I don't know. It's again, I'm being super ethereal, but like woody is always how I feel when I play the 335. It just feels like, you're in the frickin' wilderness, like being a lumberjack chopping down wood. Like it just feels so much more like organic to me.
No, I totally get it, because I like that. It's a very warm, round sound. I love that. I love the 330. What kind of pickups do you have in there? Are they stock pickups?
They're the stock pickups. I think they're 57 classics.
Oh my God, those are awesome pickups.
Oh yeah.
Holy shit! I have an SG that I'm actually selling, but the only reason I almost didn't sell is because of those pickups. They're phenomenal. Just wonderful pickups, man.
That's the sound. That's the Gibson sound that you think of in your head. That's a 57 classic.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. Do you you ever heard familiar with Freddie King?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he played a 340, a 345, I think, which was basically a 355 with a tuner switch.
Yeah.
He's, when I think 335, and when I think Gibson sound, I think of him because he was. You used that word pure earlier. He was, I found, a very pure player. Sonically, and it was I a joy to listen to him play. And like Albert King was the same, very pure.
Oh.
He plugged into a Flying V, which is kind of weird, but it's just a hard guitar to play. Let alone you see this 6'5" giant black dude coming on stage with a heavy metal guitar, and he's just slicing the blues apart. So it was awesome.
Oh, dude, and again, I mean, kind of going back to just the individual kind of preference kind of thing, like everyone's got their thing that they like, and it might seem weird, like on the outside, but like it's perfect for that person. There's a session guy here in town named Derek Wells, and he's kind of like, he's a younger guy, but he's all over the country, or all over country radio right now. He's done like Chris Young stuff and like Carrie Underwood, Thomas Rhett, like a bunch of the big records now. But one of the main guitars that he uses in the studio is a Gibson Explorer, like from 1982.
That's even stranger in country. Wow.
Right? And he posted, I remember on Instagram a little while ago, kind of jokingly, just like a picture of that guitar, and he was just like, if everybody knew that this guitar was going on their records, I feel like I would never get hired on anything.
That's probably accurate, actually. That's so funny. That's
so
amazing.
It's like, you don't question it, like it just sounds good, and it just feels good, and you hear it and you go, yeah, like that sounds perfect. Like that sounds like just like what it needs. Oh, what was it? Oh, it was a Gibson Explorer. Oh, what is it? Why does it change what it sounds like? It sounds awesome, So it's kind of funny though.
Musically, dude, this is a zoo here. Now I got a cat walking around here. This is out of control. Who are some of your influences?
Well, definitely Brad Paisley. Like I said, he was kind of the first country guitar player that I ever got into that I really thought was awesome. But I mean, growing up, I had a lot of the same kind of phases that everybody goes through, Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Those are like probably my two big ones, and then I did Brad Paisley, and then once I really started getting into country, you kind of start to learn about the session scene here in town. You start to learn about all the guys playing on all the records, and so I really started getting into that when I moved here. And you're talking about Kenny Greenberg and Jeremy McPherson. They're great players.
For sure.
One of my favorite though is probably a guy named JT Cornfloss, and I know Jim is a big as well.
Sure. He played. We listened to. We were talking about. There's an old song. Mrs. Robinson by Simon & Garfunkel. You've probably heard it, or you may have heard it. Anyway, it was a pretty famous song, and J.T. Cornfloss did a version of it, and it was really cool because it was just like all double stops. He was playing and bending. He's such a good player, bending the notes, and it was awesome, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've always loved his style. Like he's just got, of all of the session guitarists I think here in town, he's got the most like raw, it's like kind of, he's amazing, but it's like this kind of gritty, kind of dirty sound, but at the same time he's so precise, and he's just as tight, as all the other guys, timing wise, and playing, clarity wise, clarity of the notes he plays. But there's just something about him when you see him play, like, he strums the guitar, super hard. He plucks really hard. And, he's just got so much swagger, I feel like, in his playing. And he's, you wouldn't think that when you saw him. He's a skinny guy, but and I've never met him, so I mean, JT, if you're listening to this, but I mean, I've just always had so much respect for him, and like he's got. He may not be, the most, socially outgoing guy in the world, but I've heard he's a friggin' gem of a guy. And he just, when he picks up a guitar, like he's a friggin' badass, and he just sounds like a rock and roll country machine, So, love JT. Really hope to meet him someday.
Just for people listening, that's JT Cornfloss. It's JT, letter J, letter T, and it's Cornfloss, Corenflos. So check him out online. He's an excellent player.
If you've listened to country music in the past 20 years, you've probably heard him play out,
whether you know it or not. It's funny you talk about that he's a slight build guy. What I find really strange is when you see guys that are drummers like that.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, I don't know if you know Government Mule.
Yeah.
So I've seen them like I think 4 or 5 times. Matt Apps is one of the hardest hitting drummers around. He's a very hard hitting drummer, and he gets off the drum kit. Honestly, he's probably 5'3", 135 pounds. I'm amazed that he's really a hard hitting drummer, and he's an excellent, outstanding drummer. And I just assumed when he got up, I was going to see this massive hunk of a man, and he was just a regular, slight built guy. So I mean, it's just energy and passion, man, takes you pretty damn far.
Oh, I mean, and it's amazing kind of how we formulate an idea about people or musicians particularly based on what we hear of how they play, and it's interesting to see how those things are reflected in them as people, and it's I almost feel like it's kind of like you get to kind of see inside a little bit of a person when you see like a really good musician, you kind of get to peek inside a little bit of who they are, like who they really are as people, or who they aspire to be, or who they truly are, So it's really cool, and I think that's one of the reasons why music is such a magical thing for people, and people get so into it, is because it's such a visceral thing, and you make those like assumptions in your head. You hear a drummer and you think like, oh man, he sounds like such a big guy, or like this song like just sounds like so heart-wrenching, like I picture this lead singer like in a field somewhere, like, or like in the rain, and you build these ideas in your head, and there's nothing else that can kind of evoke those things like music can. So
I agree with you. And I think in general, sounds create a certain image, because I know, like in business, I have spoken to people, over my whole career on the phone, and I have an image of them, and literally 100% of the time, it is always wrong. They never, ever, ever look like what my vision of, and it happens, like everybody always says to me, I'm 5'9". The first thing people say, oh, I thought you were a taller guy, because I got a lot of energy, and, I'm sort of passionate about stuff. And so it's literally been wrong 100% of the time in my life, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Oh yeah. Music's just an extension of that. Exactly.
Hey, we're going to wrap up soon. I just want to ask you 1 or 2 more questions. Sure. And I appreciate so much of your time. Favorite place you've traveled and why?
Man, especially, if I'm on the spot right now, I would definitely have to say, just in the past year, I'd have to say New York City.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah, man. So
rock and roll.
You definitely take the cake on that one. I mean, I had never been until this year. Okay. I had just been for the first time in February, and we've been back probably 6 or 7 times since that first hit. And it's just so amazing to me that you can go to New York City, and like we've stayed in a different hotel every time, and we're in like a slightly new area of town, so like we see new things, And even though we're staying like only a few blocks away from where we stayed last time, and now we're kind of starting to get to the point where like we kind of recognize some things and we're getting to know the area a little bit better. But even then, like we've only stayed in Lower Manhattan. Like I've never been north of Central Park ever. So like there's just like this whole other area of New York that I've just never experienced before.
Where'd you play? Where'd you play in the city?
We played the last time we played at a place called Printer's Alley.
What's it called?
Printer's Alley. It was just like a little radio kind of sponsored event, and it was me. It was kind of the radio configuration too. So me, Devin, and the other guitarist.
That's a Nashville. It's a country bar right in Times Square. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And the time before that, as I said earlier, we played on Late Night with Seth Myers at 30 Rock.
Very cool. Did you like? It must be eye-opening for someone coming to the city to see Rockefeller Center for the first time. If you had a chance to see it, did you go walk around and see the ice skating rink and the statue?
Oh yeah, I mean just a little bit. We we have kind of a varying amount of free time every time we go, but we had a little bit of time when we were out there playing with Seth, so we got to check it out a little bit. And it's a beautiful building, and there's so much history in there. And obviously, like there's the Saturday Night Live was in the studio right next to us, and like we were gonna go and check it out, but it never ended up materializing. But it's there's so much kind of entertainment mojo in that building, and then obviously like you said, the skating rink and Fifth Avenue, right down the street. And what is it,
St. Patrick's Cathedral?
St. Patrick's Cathedral. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's breathtaking. It really is. It really is. Well, next time you go, man, make sure you hit me up before you go. I'll give you some places to go where you don't have to spend $50 for breakfast or lunch.
Dude, that sounds real good.
I'll give you the inside hookups.
Dude, yeah, seriously, I will probably hit you up about that.
No, seriously, I mean that. Hit me up, and I'll be happy to do that, because there's no reason that you should, I can tell you some cool places to go based on where you're at, that, it may not be too far.
Sounds good.
One last question before we go. Do you have any kind of either cool or goofy or just like a ridiculous story to tell or to share from touring?
Yeah, I was trying to think about this. I'll tell this story with a disclaimer. It contains
the proverbial disclaimer. Go ahead.
It contains nudity, but not in the sense that you would think. But
don't worry, no one here has seen nudity, so this will be eye-opening for everybody.
No one knows what nudity looks like. So, but why don't you do the disclaimer? So we were on the road with Maren Morris earlier this year. And we did a few little runs. We kind of started. We did a show in Knoxville, and then we did a little run up north, like in Ohio and Illinois, and then we did a run in Texas. And when we were up north, we did a show in I think it was it Champaign, Illinois. You're on your thing. I gotta look this up too.
Champaign, Illinois is a city.
It's a city, but we played at a place called Boondocks.
Okay.
And I had actually played there before with another artist. And is this it? No, it's not Utah. I mean, yeah, I guess it's not super important. There's Boondocks in Illinois. You can look it up.
It is Central Illinois.
Central Illinois. So there you go. So we're there playing with Maren. And it was kind of like we had been, going pretty hard for the past few days. So we kind of decided, like, yeah, maybe this is like one of the shows where we can kind of, lay a little lower, just kind of chill and how plans change. But so we played our set, and we're laying low. We were kind of hanging out in the bus, and we had seen Maren's set a few times by that point. So we were kind of just watching TV in the bus, But after the shows, we like to go out and kind of mingle with the crowd a little bit. So we started kind of hanging around a little bit. And there, like a good number of people had left by this point, but there's still a few people kind of left straggling. And there was this one lady who was left, and I remember her from the last time that I had played there with somebody else. And so, but she starts talking to me and like, oh, I know, you guys are so good, and like just like would not like leave any of us alone. And so eventually, you know, we get to the point where she's like, I don't know, can you know, I'd love to get an autograph from you guys. And we were like, okay, yeah, sure, that's fine. And so without skipping a beat, she pulls her shirt down.
Doesn't everybody get autographs on their boobs?
Oh, well, that's what she said. She said, you're going to sign right here. And I was like, oh boy. And, you know, she was a bit of a larger, you know, older woman. Mm-hmm. So, but we were all, yeah. So, you know, we're all there, kind of like, oh man, okay, like I guess we're doing this. So we all like get a Sharpie and are like signing like as far like kind of above you know, the nipple area as we can, like just trying to keep it kosher. And of course, the whole time we have a photographer that tours with us, and she's like all there, like snapping from every angle, like getting our like facial expressions as we're doing this. And so that was probably one of the crazier things that has happened.
And your mom calls you the next morning and says, "Are you okay, honey? How was your trip to Illinois?"
Yeah,
no, like, I hope nothing crazy.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I was like, I didn't think that happened at country shows. I thought that was only at rock and roll shows or
there you go, man.
Whatever. I guess country's the new rock and roll.
No, man, it's just about what you've been saying. It's about how you guys made her feel.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it was very nice, and I mean, it's cool when fans are excited and want to chat and are into the music and everything, but still get some interesting happenings for sure. So
very cool. That was a good story. Well, Nick, listen, I really I can't thank you enough for your time. I would love to have you come back on this show in 18 months to 2 years because you'll have, I mean, I know you'll be, further up the curve, and it'll be real exciting to see, all the different stuff you're doing. I know you're very involved now in production and doing demos and being a track guy. So if anybody's interested in learning more about Nick, go to his website. It's Nick DiMaria, NickDimaria music, music.com, nickdimariamusic.com. Check Nick out on Devin Dawson's recordings. I'm sure when's the next time you hit the road for that? Are you doing I know you're doing your radio stuff, but are you doing a proper tour soon with Devin?
There's a lot of stuff kind of in the works right now. We'll be opening next week in Memphis for Little Big Town. And then at the end of July, we'll be on tour with Tim McGraw on the West Coast.
Oh, wow, that's fun.
Doing a Soul World Tour. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right, Nick DiMaria, thank you very much for your time. Everybody check Nick out. He's a really cool guy. I really love your energy, man, your sincerity and your enthusiasm, and I thank you so much for sharing everything with us. And I will look forward to speaking with you then. Until then, everybody, thanks for listening, and everybody go out and support Nick and everything he's doing. Take care, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, thanks very much for listening. You can sign up to get notified of future episodes on our website at everyonelovesguitar.com. Now go play your guitar and have fun. Till next time, I'm out. Peace. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.